Hello, this is Deandra Grant, and I am filming another video for new clients of Deandra Grant Law with pending DWI cases. And the topic of this one is bond conditions. So when you get out of jail on bond, you're going to have bond conditions. Some people have more stringent bond conditions than others. So let's just start with the easiest two. One of them is do not drink alcohol while you're on bond for DWI, and the other is don't commit any offenses while you're on bond for DWI. So don't drive around with a suspended license, don't get arrested for another DWI, those kinds of things. But also the alcohol part. You don't want to find yourself in front of a judge trying to explain why you were drinking while you're on bond for DWI. It's not a pleasant hearing to be a part of. So make your life simpler. Just don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it, because the repercussions can be very unpleasant for you. You want this case to go forward as smoothly as possible. We don't need complications like bond violations hanging over your head that could come back to haunt you later. So just please don't drink alcohol. Now, if you have an alcohol problem, which many of our clients do, that is no problem for us. We are used to dealing with that. We are very sensitive to that issue, and we will help you. Perhaps you need to get into a program. We can make suggestions. We can send you for an alcohol evaluation. We can give you some resources to contact with regards to getting some help. Just please let us know. Let us know that that's an issue. But if it's not an issue for you, then just don't drink while you're on bond, please. All right. Now, ignition interlock devices or deep lung devices. If you have a prior DWI or any prior DWIs, or if you took a breath test and you scored a 0.15 or higher, then when you bonded out, they likely the judge ordered that you put an ignition interlock device on your car. The reality is a judge in Texas could order that for any DWI, and sometimes they do. But those are the two most common circumstances. You have a prior or you have a 0.15 or higher. Then you've got to get an ignition interlock device installed on any car that you drive. You notice I keep saying any car that you drive. I'm not saying it has to be your car. So if you were driving your mom's car, if you were driving your wife or your husband's car, if it's not in your name, that doesn't get you out of it. The bottom line is you cannot drive a car, any car, without an interlock device on it if you have that bond condition. So if you had borrowed someone's car and you don't have a car, or you wrecked out when you got your DWI and we're dealing with a situation where you don't have a car anymore, then I'll talk about the alternatives in a second. But if you have a car that you regularly drive or you drive at all, it has to have an ignition interlock device on it. We will require that you turn into our office a copy of the installation paperwork, because at some point the judge is going to ask us for it, and it's just easier if we have it on file. If you took a blood test, then they don't know if it was a 0.15 or higher at the time you took the test. They have to wait for the results. So what may happen is you do not get ordered to have an ignition interlock device at the beginning. But when we go to court the first time, the judge says, hey, your alcohol concentration was higher than a 0.15. I'm now going to amend your bond conditions and require that you get an ignition interlock device installed, or a DLD is what we call them, deep lung device. So if you get a DLD order, then you've got to go get that installed. Smart Start and Toxalock, and there are a few others that are companies that you could use and get we have coupons for them, free installation coupons that we will have uploaded to your file. If we have not, let us know, and we will get them to you. They should have been mailed to you in your welcome box, but if not, we can get them to you. So here's the deal with ignition interlock devices. They don't care where the alcohol came from. So in other words, if you are using products, and they will tell you this when they do the installation, they'll give you a list of products that potentially could cause a false. It's not a false positive reading. It is products that have alcohol in them. And if you use them around the device is going to read them, so to speak, and attribute it to you drinking alcohol. So you have to be careful about perfumes, mouthwashes, asthma inhalers. They'll give you a list, but just be very cognizant. The safest thing to do when you have an ignition interlock device requirement is before you get in your car and blow into it, rinse your mouth out with water. And don't spray anything in or around you. And for goodness sakes, don't spray anything around you in the car. And then you should be able to do a clean test. All right, so long as you haven't been drinking. The devices typically have a camera in them. So if when the person blows into it, it takes a picture of the person blowing. So for instance, if you let someone else drive your car and they blow into the device, and let's say they had alcohol in their breath, they'll be able to differentiate between you and that person because they took a picture of the person blowing. Okay. So the devices are kind of a pain. They go off, they beep. You have to blow in them in a certain interval. Some counties want you blowing, even if you're not driving the car, like they'll say you have to blow into it 3 times a day, whether you move the car or not, which quite frankly is ridiculous, but it's one of the things that happens these days. They've gotten more and more strict about bond conditions on DWIs over the years. So be very careful. And if for whatever reason you blow into that device and it registers ethanol, it registers alcohol, then it's going to wait 2 minutes and give you an opportunity to blow again. You always want to keep doing the test until you get to a 0, because if you just stop blowing and it's a false reading, for instance, it was mouthwash or something like that, they're not going to know that. Whereas if you wait 2 more minutes and blow into the device again, it probably would have cleared out and will blow zeros. And then it'll show that that wasn't really a drinking episode. So don't just get out of the car and go in the house and say, oh my gosh, I failed. You need to blow again in 2 minutes until you get the all clear that it's showing zeros. All right. This is very important and can help us if we find ourselves in front of a court trying to explain an alleged violation. Okay. Now, let's say you don't have a car. Car's gone. You never had a car. You're driving somebody else's car when you got arrested. You wrecked your car, whatever. If you are not driving at all, then we can ask the judge to amend your bond conditions and allow you to use a handheld device to do the same thing. You'd be blowing into it periodically, but it's just not attached to your car. What goes along with that is the fact that you can't drive. So if you get a handheld device, that's fine, so long as you're not driving. What you don't want to have happen is to tell the judge, hey, I'm not driving, let me do a handheld device, and then they find out you're actually also driving. That would be very bad. So don't do that. We're only going to get a handheld device if you truly are not driving. And then a more extreme option is what's called a 𝐟𝐸𝐵 device. And a 𝐟𝐸𝐵 device is, you may have seen celebrities with the little ankle bracelet on that, I know Lindsay Lohan had one years ago. It's a transdermal device that reads alcohol as it comes off your skin. And in circumstances where people are on bond for intoxication manslaughter or intoxication assault, or you have had many DWIs, it's a felony DWI situation, or you keep having bond violations, you keep drinking while you're on bond, the court might say, hey, you know what? We're going to require that you have a 𝐟𝐸𝐵 device. You really don't want one. They're very uncomfortable. I wore one for an entire weekend one time as an experiment at a conference where I was doing a drinking study, and we were trying to compare my breath test results to what was coming off the 𝐟𝐸𝐵. But it was not fun. It actually vibrates when it reads. It's very distracting. It's very hard to sleep with them. And they also leave a blister or a bruise on your ankle. So let's try to avoid that. Let's not have any bond violations if possible. If you have any other questions, you always want to reach out to the office. Your point of contact for things like this is going to be Cheryl Curry. When you send a message in my case, always include Cheryl and your attorney on the message so that we can make sure we get back to you in a timely fashion. All right. Hopefully this answers all your questions, and stick around. We have other videos in our new client series. The next one's going to be what to expect on your criminal case.